What's going on, guys, and welcome back. We have a brand new season, and it's the last one of the year. The Hell Gala starts Tuesday, and Sebastian Shaw is our season pass card. Today, Alex and I are going to break down the card, our thoughts on him, and all the new cards coming out in December, as well as our final rankings on November's cards, taking a look back at the Miss Marvel season. We got ourselves a big one today, talking news, notes, OTAs, and everything in between, and we're going to be talking about that all today and more on this episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I am joined by Mr. Alex Coccia for the brand new season. Buddy, we've got ourselves... This is typically like my favorite episode every month. There's so much to break down. We got a lot of new cards to break down. We reflect on the old season. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, and you're right. Like, it's going to be an absolutely wild season. I think there's a lot of really interesting cards, and reflecting on the prior season as well, there was some bangers in there that might not have been expected. It's been a wild time to be a Marvel Snap player.
Yeah, man. On top of that, it's the last one of the year, and we've got some news and notes. They kind of snuck it into the update video. The trailer was bomb. The little James Bond reference to it. The red carpet, Finn Brode looking fly as usual, but we've got ourselves some hidden announcements. They had a lot of emotes in there. Want to call that out first, dude. The emotes, aren't they? They delivered on the emotes. But I have to ask this, okay? Are people gonna hate them? Like, I hope people use them in good fun, and like they're gonna be toxic. But I think it's perfect. I think they're gonna be amazing.
Yeah, they look like they're going to be pretty damn cool. And to answer your question, are people going to use them to be toxic? Yes.
All the time.
So certainly. They're going to be used to be toxic, like nonstop.
And then not only do we have the new season coming out Tuesday, dude, but we also have the balance patch as well, which is a big... I know a lot of people are kind of waiting for this one, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a balance patch that should really shake up the meta. I'm hoping for something pretty big. I think the meta's starting to get a little stale. I think that some of the constant same, like the usual suspects, I've been dominating the top tier of the meta, so I'm hoping that things get shaken up.
Does Goliath get addressed?
No, I don't think so. I think Goliath is left. Honestly, I do. I don't think Goliath gets changed.
Well, with that, I know we're going to be talking about Goliath probably on your side. What are we talking about on your side of the channel, bud?
Cozy, we're going to be talking about Snap's newest villains. There's always villains out there that are really pissing people off, and I think that there's some new ones that have emerged in Marvel Snap. We'll be discussing those. We'll also be discussing the December update, the emotes, the smart decks, and all of that as well. Then finally, we're going to be doing our weekly mailbag. Cozy, it's going to be a good one.
December, man. Are you guys celebrate the holidays a lot over there?
Oh yeah. We're going pretty hard. The kids love it. I just I put up a 12-foot Santa right in front of my house. Massive.
Were you
massive
like
Santa Claus.
Bolting that down to the house? How do you keep that baby up? Inflatable, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's inflatable. It's one of those big Costco. It's Costco. It's a Costco inflatable Santa.
Okay. Here's a good question for you to get things going in December. Okay. If there was a Mount Rushmore, all right, a Mount Rushmore of Christmas songs, hit me with like a few of those like that are on there for the Alex list. Are you a Christmas like music guy?
You know what? I'm not like a huge Christmas song person, but I do love Feliz Navidad. I can listen to that song. It's just such a good spirited song. The one that I really hate is that Last Christmas I Gave You My Heart song, which is just so overplayed. I can't handle it. In fact, when I used to work retail years ago, I worked at basically a Best Buy, Canadian Best Buy. It was called Future Shop. And what I did was we had like a CD player that controlled all the music in the store. And I would sneak in there and I would put that song on repeat for hours and hours and hours until someone would notice and change it. But sometimes it would be like an 8-hour shift where that one song would repeat over and over again. No one would notice. That's how forgettable it is.
Hey, I hate you because literally it's on the Rushmore. There's no... Dude, Wham got the exclamation point from Last Christmas. I mean, Last Christmas is easily on the top 4, man. Maybe there's a divide. Like maybe there's a divide. We'll have to find out from our viewers. But dude, Last Christmas has got to be on. My most hated is probably, and I didn't know I hated this song until like it was playing, and I was like, I'd kill it. Get rid. The 12 Days of Christmas. It drives me, dude. It drives me nuts. I can't do it. Can't do that one. What else is on there? What are your other like bangers?
I mean, I really like Silent Night is a nice one, but you got to be in the mood for that. Like, you just got to. It's a very somber song, right?
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I just hate that one song. Everything else is good. I'll listen to anything else.
Rocking Around the Christmas Tree is a staple. We'll have to do like movies next week. Is a staple. The Christmas song, the chestnuts roasting. I mean, come on, that's like
I'm not sure what song that is.
Chestnuts roasting over an open fire. You're pulling my leg. Come on, Jack Frost nipping at your nose. You
Oh, okay. Is that Frank Sinatra?
So you hate Christmas?
I'm actually not sure. That was a legitimate question. I'm not trying to be funny.
Yeah, you hate the holidays. No, I get it. It's called the Christmas song. It's the Christmas song. I was not prepared for I hate Last Christmas. And what is the Christmas song, by the way? Like, we need to move on. I'm going to get too angry here. Okay. And so the most hated is Last Christmas for you. Most hated.
It has to be, but I think it's like not the original. It's like the Beyonce version or something like that. There's some new version that has like a lot of like over singing in it, if that makes sense. Like there's a lot of like way too much like just weirdness.
But Silent Night's a banger.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think so. No? But I said it was somber. It's a different kind of song. I don't know. I was caught off guard by this.
All right, confirmed. Elephants and Christmas. Alex hates put it on a t-shirt. We got obviously Sebastian Shaw coming out, and it's not holiday themed. We've got the Hell Gala as a theme this month, which a lot of cool variants, a lot of cool things coming out. We're going to break that down in a moment. But as always, Alex, we got to talk about November. We like to rank cards every single month like we're doing right now, but we got to hold ourselves a little bit responsible. See what we ranked these cards before we got our hands on the cards. And it's hard, man. It's hard to rank these cards until you play them. But we got some fun rankings for the November season, buddy. So we're going to go and look back at what we ranked them, and then we'll also give the new rankings. And obviously, man, we had the season pass card to kick things off. Miss Marvel was our season pass card, and looking back, you know what? Roll the clip.
I don't know if we're going to talk stars, but I'm not hot on this card.
No way. Okay, what's your star rating?
On it. You think this is going to be strong?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Wait, what's your star rating? I want to hear. I got to know.
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot. I'm leaning towards like a 2. Like
a 2-star? A Black Knight? Alex, you rated this the same as Black Knight. You gave this a 2-star. I just need to know, were you hammered? I just got to know.
I was pretty inebriated, yes. I do apologize to everyone in the Snapchat community for getting extremely buzzed prior to recording. I wasn't myself that day. The ratings have been completely off. I do apologize. I take full responsibility for my actions.
It's all good. I can't wait to relive some of these rankings. You know what? Hey, you really swung for the fences on this season. And I commend because you nailed the Legion. And I think you were like, I'm going to go 4 for 4 on this season. I'm going to nail this. So you gave it a 2-star. And I gave it a 4.5. Obviously, right now, Miss Marvel, man, I think a damn near 5-star card. I mean, it's damn near perfect. I would probably give it almost a perfect ranking.
Just love how you framed that. I gave it a 4.5 star. You gave it a 2-star. Probably the best card ever released in the last little while.
It only gets worse.
I'm so sorry, Cozy. I got it wrong. But yeah, no, the card's been phenomenal. And I think the key component of it is that the requirements of having cards in those locations, it seemed way more difficult in my head than it ended up playing out to be. The other side to that is something like Doctor Doom solved a lot of those problems. So you're seeing a lot of decks with Doctor Doom and Miss Marvel being played together in order to alleviate that problem, especially since the Doom bots themselves are 6-drops. So it's very unlikely you're not going to have a 6-drop in a location with Miss Marvel being kind of like being duplicated. So yeah.
What is she now? What is she now for you, star-wise?
I definitely think she's a 4-star card.
Okay.
She still has some limitations, I think. I still think, like, I know people say, oh, you can still play her right or left. Nah, she's a mid card. You want her to go mid. I don't care what anyone says. Like, I think it's still best mid, but the card is undeniably good.
It's kind of crazy, too. I just thought Enchantress was going to make her way back this season. It's kind of nutty that she really didn't all that much, and that allowed Miss Marvel, to do what she does best. So, yeah, obviously, very good season pass card. And when we talk about Sebastian Shaw coming up, it's kind of crazy because I'm not going to spoil it, but he's got big shoes to fill with Loki, Elsa, and Miss Marvel. Just a really strong 3 months in a row. Definitely tough. Now, the next card we ranked, Alex, was Gladiator, who was a 3-7 at the time. And Alex, do you know what you ranked Gladiator?
I don't want to say it out loud because I know what I ranked it.
What did you rank him?
Didn't I give him 4 stars?
You gave him a 4. You gave him 4 stars, which I commend. I was watching your stream, and I was like watching this man like really try to make this card a 4-star card, and I loved it.
I had to, man. I tried so hard.
So we get I gave him a 2.5 with the potential to go up to about a 3.5. You gave him a 4. So final rankings now, kind of weird. Still, I probably 2.5 is what I would stick with.
I am like 2.5, but I'll round up to a 3. Like I played a lot of this card, way too much of this card. And in some decks and some matchups, he's just a pain in the ass for the opponent. Like there's some decks that just do not match well against him. And other ones like, oh great, they're playing Tribunal. I lose. I'm not playing Gladiator ever, I guess. Yeah. But other than that, if you're playing an initiative-based Surfer list, he's actually pretty good. And so like, I don't know. I think that he gave a little bit of room for Negasonic to breathe because he can earn initiative very effectively and stuff like that. But yeah, the effect is still kind of suspect. And I tried playing him with Cosmo to not let the effect go off. And it's like, man, what are we even doing at that point? I don't know. Yeah, the card's definitely a 2-star card.
I want to know the Alex Star conversion chart, because if Miss Marvel's a 4 and this is a 3, it's that small of separation between those two?
No, as I was speaking, I realized how wrong I was. I ended saying it was actually a 2.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify. I think he'll have some days ahead. Maybe not. We'll have to see. Maybe it's this season. We'll talk about it with Silver Surfer. So Gladiator definitely, he's just awkward, and he's one of those cards that you don't have to play, and I think that's ultimately where I landed. I honestly haven't played him since that release week. I just have not been bothered to play him because I enjoy consistency. But if you enjoy chaos, then maybe it is the card for you. And then we've got Annihilus, which, Alex, I am very proud to tell you, you did not sleep on Annihilus. You gave Annihilus a 4-star. I gave it a 4.5. And my God, I think it was just that, right? We said he would be one of the most hated cards, or at least he's going to change Marvel Snap, and I think he did, right? He's definitely what we thought he would be.
He's a great card, absolutely. The thing I really like about Annihilus is he really showcases the idea of not getting greedy in Snap when designing decks. Because all of us, when we first started with Annihilus, we're like, okay, we're going to add Debris, we're going to add Hood, we're going to add Sentry, we're going to add all these things to make this like junk deck. The opponent can't do anything. Then I kind of realized, like, wait a minute. Like, all you really need is Hood and Sentry. And then all of a sudden you got a good deck. Like the turn 5 swing with the Void going over is enough for Annihilus. And I think it's a really good lesson in deck crafting. Being like, listen, you don't have to go all crazy with like all in on a specific card, a specific archetype or anything. Sometimes just that splash is enough to really make it feel good. And I think that's what Annihilus really hammered home. It's
like every season there's a really good combo deck, and then there's always the value deck, right? So we have the Statue of Black Bolt, right? If you can't, value is always king, unless your combo is consistent and can go over the top, right? And so I think that's why even Surfer we've seen struggle at times, because is it not the best combo deck? Is there one better than that? And if it's not, then you play the value list of just getting like consistent high stats. And so yeah, definitely agree. I think the total package with Annihilus right now is too risky, although we have cards we're about to talk about that could really end up making it much more of this kind of junk list altogether. So Annihilus, obviously very good card. And then, of course, we've got Martyr. And, again, I am proud to say, I think you gave her a 2. You gave her a 2, I think, which is fine. Listen, I know somebody made her work in some type of you can't convince me on it. Just not a good. There's no way. I think she's here just so X Mansion can give you her, and you get like a bad pull. That's it.
Yeah, it's a poo-poo card. But I mean, one of these had to get released eventually, and it's kind of unfortunate because like, I think the effect's actually cool. I think the text is actually really interesting, but it's not enough. And I feel like the flavor's off, like in the sense of like, it'd be cool if I could Viper this and it was like a -2 or something.
Yeah.
And like, therefore it was actually detrimental to the opponent in some way. I get where they're going with this. It felt really awkward because also 4 power is enough that it's still decently statted, but it's just not worth the risk. Like Ant-Man can get to 1/4. Yeah. Hawkeye gets to 1/4, gets way higher in bounce decks. Why even bother playing Martyr?
Yeah. I definitely I don't see it. I know people have been trying to make her work. I kind of called it too. I was like, I know there are going to be people trying to get this card to be worth the value. And overall, it doesn't make the list for myself. I don't know. If you're going to, I think it's good that we have weeks like this, allowing people to save up their caches. We have some really good spotlights coming up. So if we're going to rank them all together, I think Miss Marvel at the top. Number 2 would go to Annihilus, and then it would be Gladiator, Martyr. Kind of an easier season to rank than the previous ones, like both October, September. We had so many good cards. It was like, what do we put ahead? So altogether, just good months of Snap as far as card releases go. And my friend, that takes us to December. Now, this is going to be a December to remember. I think for a lot of reasons, mainly because we've got ourselves some interesting cards coming out that kind of complete some archetypes that bring a new spin to them. It's so funny when you look at just the top tier of what we've had in the months and then what will be coming out here. I want to say this though, man. It's so crazy that the balance patch comes with a new card, right? Because you have Shaw bringing in his own meta feel, and then this is bound to be a bigger. This is the last time they can change. I think they can in OTAs, but I don't think they will. This is the last time they can truly change what a card does in this year for at least 4 weeks, right? I mean, they're going to come after holiday break. So the meta is going to be determined for a while here, man. And it could be, the Loki meta. I don't know what to expect. I'm nervous,
I'm nervous as well. But I think they've always had a pretty decent plan. They obviously know what needs to get changed, what balance has to get done. I just wonder if that's going to align with what people expect, right? Like, that's always the question. People's expectations before compared to what actually ends up happening. But I think that this month is going to be pretty wild. And to get a patch and a season pass rollover at the same time is going to be pretty crazy, because I think that there's a lot of banger cards in here. I think it's going to be a really interesting month.
And then they realized, I think, they're like, you know what? We've got a lot happening. We need the OTA. Because they didn't have it, then they put it back in. And I think that's a good thing. Because who knows? Especially with like a season pass card, it's risky to say no OTA because there's some adjustment that might need to happen. With that, though, let's go ahead and go into the newest card coming out. We've got Sebastian Shaw. Now, a lot of these cards got updated right before they've come out, which is always good to see. Sebastian Shaw, for those that don't know, is a 3-cost, 4-power card. When this card permanently gains power, gain +2 more power wherever he is, in the hand, in the deck, off somewhere at the Hell Gala. Oh boy, man, big shoes to fill. Like I talked about, we've got a couple of good months. Before we go into any type of synergy and all this stuff, just like hit me with the star rating.
He's definitely a 4. Like, it has to be. I think it's a good effect. I think it's a strong card. Got buffed from data mines. It was a 3-3 prior, now a 3-4. That could go to say that, okay, maybe they thought it was a little undertuned in testing, but I think as a 3-4, its base stat line is strong enough. Like, I mean, it's good. And then you get to anytime you give it power, it gets +2. Come on now. That's not very difficult.
So, yeah, a 4. The thing is, I think he's going to be awesome. Like, and I want to take that. I want to make sure the context is correct here. He'll be like a top tier card in the decks he's in, right? In the decks that he belongs in, which is kind of what I love of season pass cards, that they work in a good amount of decks, not in everything. He's not a must-have meta card. I think that's bad overall for like the free-to-play experience. But he's gonna, like, it's funny that we sleep on cards and we compare them to others, but then if you just look at pure value, right? Like, let's talk no other synergy except, let's say Surfer hits him once, he's a 3-6, he gets a +2, he's a 3-8. Right there, done and done. Obviously, we like that stat line, and that's very minimal on what you can make happen with Sebastian. So I would agree. I'd say probably overall, I like him about a 3.5, 4-star for myself. We're going to have to see ultimately how many decks he does belong in. We have a lot of comparisons, a lot of synergies. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good one, man. Let's go and kind of start there. The permanent power. There's not too many cards that can do that, but I think there's a fair amount, and the ones that do it are the ones that work with him, right? The decks that you're going to want to play, and I think they're somewhat meta decks already. So let's start, man. What are some synergies you like? Hit me with one, and we'll kind of break it down.
What I want to start with is Silver Surfer. Naturally, I'm a huge Silver Surfer fan, and what I will say is I think in Silver Surfer, this is a 5-star card.
Yeah.
And the reason why I dropped it down to 4 was because, like, that's what you mentioned prior. It doesn't have that, like, natural, like, this goes in everything feel like that Elsa could, or other decks in the past, or cards in the past, I should say. But this one here is a little more niche in its application, but is incredible with Silver Surfer. Not only does Silver Surfer buff it, but think about the core kind of shells of Silver Surfer. It's like a tongue twister. I'm saying it so much. Like Nova, just Nova itself, right? Nova Killmonger has been a staple in Surfer decks since the dawn of Surfer, like at all. And now you have a card where Nova is going to be basically +3 to Sebastian Shaw, in addition to the Silver Surfer as well. It's crazy.
Yeah, dude, of course, like, you got to start there. You got to start at the 3 cost with the Surfer. That's why making him a 3-4 is kind of silly, kind of crazy, because of the synergy you just alluded to. You know what? I think he is Dawkin level of good, but better. And Destroy is already so full, so, like, the decks he works in is going to be more of that, right? So that's ultimately, like, kind of how I've placed him. So what I like, dude, is going with the Surfer build, and it brings back the Nova, like you just said. And then you've got the Killmonger in there, and then you've got Dawkins in there, and you have double synergy going on for kind of a big boomer bust. And if you don't draw all the cards, it's okay. So I like that fact. Obviously, in Surfer 2, we've got Wongers, if you want to go that route with the double hit, which would then exponentially grow the card. So, not bad. Do you think, we've talked about this, I don't know how many times, does Nakia finally make it?
Nakia has not felt horrible in Surfer decks from time to time. Like, I have played her. The problem is that if you don't play her on 3, it's a horrible draw. Like, it's just a card that you just don't want to ever play outside of turn 3, because like you just don't get the value there. However, Sebastian Shaw will benefit from getting kind of the proc from Nakia. So I don't know. I don't think Nakia ultimately makes it. I think that Nova and Surfer are going to be enough to make Sebastian Shaw worth running, and it's that simple.
Yeah, I don't think Nakia makes it. Again, going up 3 points is great, but you don't. It's so tight. Would you rather run a counter card? Would you rather run these 2 costs that are starting to slot into Surfer? Probably would be my guess. But also with Shaw, and we have way more synergies to talk about. Locations are always fun. I think locations are important to look at. And right off the bat, dude, we've got a lot of locations that work with Shaw as just free. Muir Island, Shuri's Lab, Stark Tower, easy Aunt May's. That's easy power points to be giving Shaw. However, you're going to see this as I allude to some other combos. I think Shaw is going to be one of those cards that you probably want to play late rather than early, because his biggest counter is quite obvious, right? It's going to be Shadow King. And as you know, Shadow King can be tough. It can be tough to play because it's awkward, and having to play one on turn 6 could really suck for the opponent because they wanted to do something else. I like the idea of Shaw coming out as that Sarah burst at the end.
Shadow King's stonks are going up like crazy lately. Honestly, way up. And you're right, Shadow King is probably the best counter. Shang-Chi is going to be a factor too, because I think that, especially in the first week, people are going to be just like going super greedy on Sebastian Shaw to get him super high. But ultimately, it is 100% Shadow King, because Shadow King also gives you counterplay against Collector, counterplay against Venom, counterplay against Sebastian Shaw. The list goes on. Like almost every major archetype, like Shadow King says, hey, I got you. Don't worry about it. We're going to win this game. Like, why wouldn't you want to play Shadow King on like turn 5? Turn 6 feels weird. I often like playing him on turn 5 in conjunction with something else, because turn 6 you want to close. You want to close the game. But Shadow King can definitely close the game too.
Well, dude, I want to lead into this subject with the archetype of Surfer, but then like go into the main archetype itself. Brother, Werewolf by Night packaged with him is going to be silly in Surfer, because Wolf is getting the biggest comparison to him. Wolf is a better card, ultimately, in my opinion, than Shaw is because of the flexibility, but you have to kind of take in consideration card space. I don't know if he'll be in the Surfer build, because Brood naturally will probably want to be figured out in here. But he could be easily, and that leads me to, my God, if you think about the complement cards for Werewolf and now Shaw at the same time. Obviously, Forge, man. Forge is such an easy way to get this guy power. Such a for both Wolf and Shaw at this point. But then on top of that, you've got Nico Minoru, who could also give the plus power to both Shaw and Werewolf and activate that as well. That's where I really see things going. And ultimately, that leads me back to Bounce. I think Shaw might have his best build, or one of them, in a bounce list as well. You know, is Surfer in that? I don't know. Maybe you bounce Surfer back. Who knows? But I do know that with the way that Wolf has been working lately, and now throwing Shaw for more power on the Forge and getting things cooking, I think that's where he's going to end up.
I think you're huffing pure hopium if you think that Werewolf by Night survives Tuesday's patch. Yeah, that's a key factor you got to keep in mind.
Okay, but even if there's not a lot you could do with this card to make him a bad card. I'm telling you, take him into a 3-1. He's still going to be...
He's a 3-1 for sure on Tuesday, I think. Fine. He has to be, right?
Fine. He's getting stupid numbers, though, no?
Yeah, no, he still is. Like, he's still great. The thing that has, like, really... Okay, everyone's comparing Sebastian Shaw with Werewolf by Night. I think the thing that I always go back to is I think the complementary cards of Werewolf by Night are always going to be better. There's so many good on-reveal cards that just naturally do their thing. With Sebastian Shaw, it's like, hey, I get to play Okoye. Like, whoa, you know what I mean? Great, right? So, but like with Werewolf by Night, like even Snowguard, Like Snowguard activates Werewolf by Night. You wouldn't even realize that, right? Like that's why he's so good in those bounce-based lists.
But that's why I think if you put them together, you got the Forge and you've got Nico, and it works with both of them.
That's fair. That's fair. 100%. Yeah.
So I get it. I don't know if they'll ultimately make the same list together, but the fact that he's also a 3, and who knows, man, maybe they take him to a 4, right? Like that would be really something, because then you can even get him out even more, and then that would actually extremely hurt him, right? Because then you can't get him out earlier. That would be huge for him.
The thing with me though is I don't think they end up in the same deck that often.
No.
Maybe the bounce list, because I mean with Beast, right, you can really generate some extra space, be a little more reactive. But like something in a Surfer deck though, like because you have Nova, you're gonna want to run the Brood. Brood Nova is too good, and that just completely destroys Werewolf's ability to bounce around.
I think it's an either or. Like what we've been seeing in Surfer a lot, like Patriot Surfer, I think is the best example. I just did like a huge guide, and I left out Patriot Surfer because he's a complement in that deck, right? Like it's a Patriot deck, and then Surfer can help it out. And I think ultimately that's what Surfer could be in a Shaw Werewolf deck, or just a Shaw. We'll have to see, but like just another card to add power to the overall package of what you're looking at. So obviously Surfer, Bounce, those are the best places. Shaw, no question, right? I think we can agree on that. Okoye, Nakia, maybe a small bump up there. And hell, maybe they try to bump him up even more in the OTA balance patches. Maybe they make Okoye. This is maybe what they've been waiting for, to give Okoye some more love. We're going to have to see. And it all comes on the same day on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's hard to say, right? Like if Okoye gets bumped up to a 2/3, so it feels less detrimental to play, I mean, at all, then maybe that makes more sense. But I mean, that's at all, like they're coming out at the same time, this balance patch and the season rollover, and it's hard because like a lot could potentially change, because when you start changing the text of cards and the power of cards, the meta really does fluctuate. So I'm really looking forward. It's gonna be a wild day.
Well, dude, listen here, man. I mean, Ironheart, also great 3-cost card to boost him up. Elsa, I think, won't make it ultimately, and Sebastian Shaw, it's a bit greedy with Elsa and the way you play her. But then you can have Brood involved, so then maybe Elsa finds her way back into Surfer. We had that for a brief period. All I know is I think Shaw has really cool decks that could be created with him, making his own kind of archetype in some type of ways. Now, Alex, I have 2 insanely cheeky decks that people aren't thinking of. You got one for me?
I'm gonna be going straight Surfer. I'm not getting as cheeky. Okay. It's where I think of the card's gonna be the strongest and where I'm looking forward to the most. But I'm always interested in your sexy brews. I gotta be honest with you.
So hear me out. Phoenix Force has really, it's the best season it's been. It's about 55% win rate over about 1,500 games. Phoenix Force for Sebastian Shaw has some interesting ways to work, because it does activate with the Force, and it's already a deck that wants Hulkbuster, it wants Forge, it has multiple man, and so Shaw could naturally work. Like, you can never shove cards into decks to make them work. They have to already work in the blend of what's going on there, and the way that that's boosting power is already happening. And so I'd be interested to see if that is something that you would work in as a complement card. So that's kind of my first takeaway there, especially with the Hulkbuster. I think it's extremely fun to potentially have the 5 power going to him, and then immediately he goes up to 2, and so he's an 11 power card. Kind of nutty. I don't know. We'll have to see with that. Even as a last turn, bro. That's not a bad card to play for 11 power in one lane, if that's all you have. And then my last one, and this is where I think people are trying to build up some crazy things, but I want to see if we can make it make sense. Shuri. Now, Shuri's one of the few others that can give power. The problem is, do we see a Wakanda deck? It would be the only way you could make this work. You would need Shaw to be big in your hand, right? And continue to build him up. Because theoretically, on 1, 2, and 3, if you can build up Shaw, play Shuri on 4, Shaw on 5, and then you can Taskmaster, the Shaw could be big, like real big. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. Do you think you can build up Shaw fast enough to work in a Shuri deck?
I don't know. Listen, I tried to do the math on the Shuri deck. It doesn't seem like it's worth it. Like if you're competing with like a Red Skull, a Vision, or anything along those lines, or even a Typhoid Mary for that matter, like those are just so naturally high statted cards. Like Shaw, like what you basically play Okoye, top deck Shaw, play a Nakia, then play Shuri, and then turn 5 you play Shaw, and it's like, well, what have you really even earned that much compared to just playing your Red Skull? Like,
wouldn't it be not, right? 7 power? It'd be 7 power if you played Nakia and Okoye on curve. It'd be 7 power to Shaw, making him an 11 play him on Shuri, I think he would go to 22, then get +2. So he'd be a 24 power card. I get it, Red Skull's better, but I'm just, I'm always throwing out some crazy stuff.
You're always
right?
brewing. I get it.
Hey, why not, right? So interesting enough. I think it could be cool to see what we got going there. Also, guys, permanent power is not ongoing. It's not Blue Marvel. You have to have it given to him, right? Essentially, is the best way to think about it. So we're gonna have to see. And also with that, he's a card that continues to get updated as cards like that come out, which we always love, Alex. We always talk about cards that get better over time. So we're gonna have to see ultimately how the permanent power works, Alex. Valkyrie. I don't know. There's some interactions I want to see if he does gain that power overall. So Sebastian Shaw for me. Obviously, I think he's a great card. If you like Surfer, if you like Bounce, you're gonna love him. Now, Alex, before we move on to the new cards, I do want to state they did take out Firestar. We don't know why exactly. A lot of people are saying maybe she's too strong. We'll have to see. I'm sure she's going to come back in a later season, which means they moved some cards together and moved the spotlights. And so before we go into that, the spotlight on the season pass week is awesome. Like, it's now great. They put Man-Thing in instead of Blob. You have Jeff the Shark in there, and then you've got Stegron. If you're missing, obviously, Jeff and Man-Thing, that's a great week to go in on, yeah?
Oh, and by the way, and Steggy's way better than people give it credit for. I love Steggy. Playing Steggy in like a C5 deck always feels fantastic. No one expects that card. Honestly, like, I'm a Steggy believer, so I think it's a great week, yes.
Yeah. So definitely, if you're missing cards too, I would spotlight this week up. Go crazy. But the next week and the next card would be Blob coming out on December 12th. And with Blob is Living Tribunal and Ravonna Renslayer. If you missed her, now's your chance to go back and get her. And a pretty fun week of spotlights, too. I think this is an interesting one. Buddy, the Blob. This is a card. This is just perfection of the human body right here. What are your initial impressions? Give me a star rating on Blob.
My initial impression is that this is what peak athletic performance looks like.
Easily.
Blob.
Easily. This is Santa.
Tank. He's in the X-Men animated series, right?
Oh, yeah, dude. This is actually Santa before he was the Claws, man. This was like his origin story.
My early rating's 3. Definitely a 3.
I have him right at 3. I think that Blob, I know Glenn even spoke to it. I think that Blob will get better. There's cards coming out to complement him. What he does is awesome, and I think it will win games. But ultimately, he's only going to work in a couple of decks altogether. In the long run, a year off from now, I think Blob is going to have a place. There's awkwardness too, because a lot of, like, let's take Lockjaw, for example. You don't want to play Blob because if Blob comes out of Lockjaw, he eats your whole deck. It's gone. It's merged. You're done at that point, right? Now, he doesn't destroy cards. This isn't going to work with no Blob. It's going to be a 6 cost, 4 power card on reveal. Merge your deck into this and gain its total power. Ongoing, obviously. I'm not moving Blob. I'm never moving this guy. He's a huge guy. It's more of a thematic ongoing effect, which I love. So I give it a 3-star, and I think we've talked about it briefly maybe before. What I love about him, outside of being probably the most obvious thing, is we finally have a way that isn't Enchantress, that isn't Rogue, dealing with Darkhawk. This is a fantastic Darkhawk counter. I think that's my favorite thing about him, is that you have a card now that you have as an option to not only swing a lane to win, right? I don't know about you, but if you play Darkhawk, people are always counting on that lane to be one that they win, and then you just play them in the one they're not playing. That's a win. It's over.
Yeah, we've been looking for something to counter Darkhawk for a long time, and this obviously really destroys Darkhawk. It'd be one of those situations where if you're running a Darkhawk-based deck and you're going into, Conquest, you got to fear the Blob, because you're never going to go out of that match unscathed. And at best, you can, you're going to Widow's Bite, you're going to put the rocks. Hopefully they don't draw the Blob, but that means you're going into turn 6, hoping that your Darkhawk and your Mystique don't turn into complete donuts on the field as a zero, right?
Zero.
It's kind of crazy, honestly.
We've needed it. We've needed a card that directly eats from the deck. We haven't had that before, so definitely I love what he does. He's a Lamentus in one package here, but obviously he doesn't destroy. However, when I evaluated this card when it first came out, the most easy, simple place that makes sense, and you already know probably what I'm going to bring up, is going to be Hela. I think Hela is the coolest place, which is fun, because Hela is always on the cusp of being good, and it needed a flavor change. I think it kind of edged out in November. It was hot a couple months. This is a perfect Hella card. I think this is exactly what you want in a Hella card, no?
I agree, absolutely. It's actually one of my notes was like, hey, Hella's going to be banger here because Hella technically runs a lot of large cards. And the nice thing about this now is that like you're able to put that power on the board without having to worry about drawing those cards. The Gigantos and stuff like that are in your deck are going to actually provide value. It's kind of crazy if you think about it. Now, naturally, you're going to want to have this card discarded, and then you want to play Hella, right? It's kind of, obviously, they're both 6 costs, but honestly, remarkable synergy.
I mean, the idea of getting rid of him, and then, like, last turn, you have, like, Infinite Magneto left in your deck, and Blob is, like, a 36 power card or whatever. That's stupid. That's crazy. Like, he turns into the Onslaught Iron Man. What lane does that go into? And that just is an auto win, but he's by himself. So, like, if he goes in one lane and then you have Infinite, whatever, I don't know, in the other, then you're going to win. It makes Hella a little bit more reliable, which I think is fun. But Alex, I gave it a 3-star, but where I think he could go way higher. He could excel past our thinking, because a lot of people are just kind of going Hella with this card. Dude, it is the Sunspot deck with She-Hulk, Moon Girl, and all that greatness. And hear me out. The idea of playing a double-up deck with Blob, with Sunspot and She-Hulk, and you play Moon Girl, and you just leave your hand, you have your hand maxed out. You have it ready to go. And then what you can do is you're essentially having your deck full. Oh, if you don't even go that route, you can also go like Devil Dinosaur, and you have a lot of card generation, and you don't care. You're Agent Coulson, you're filling up your hand, but if you have Blob as the finisher, Devil Dino, and then a 30 power Blob because your hand was, your deck is full of good cards, am I crazy there, or do you think that might be okay?
No, you're not crazy, but like it actually showcases a potential downfall of Blob as well. Like at the same time, I agree with your potential statement, but it showcases how like there are some issues there too, because what makes cards powerful for the most part isn't necessarily their stat line. It's going to be the effect. So if a Devil Dinosaur is in the deck, right, that's only contributing 3 power to Blob. It's not the ongoing effect, right? Yep. And so like a lot of cards are like that. Like Alioth, the 3 power in Alioth isn't what makes Alioth so spicy. And so like Blob is interesting because like, hey, you can run Crossbones if you want. Like, yeah, if you want stats, there's cards that give you stats. But there are very few cards that give you stats and have incredible effects. And so Blob might find himself in this weird spot. It's like you're running suboptimal cards just for the stat line. I don't know. It's kind of tricky. That's what kind of brings him down a bit.
Right, because like Taskmaster is the obvious, like, oh my god, or Arnim Zola, but there's 0 power. So at that point, it's kind of awkward, which is why I think they boosted him from a 3 power he was to a 4 power, because Mr. Negative probably would have been too strong. I think ultimately having Blob as a 3/6 would have been stupid, and I think probably they figured that out in testing, is my gut feeling there. So not only do we have Hella, we have potentially some of those decks. We're going to have to see how those kind of work out, the She-Hulk, the Devil Dino. But ultimately, man, we also have Ramp, which is an interesting option. I think Ramp with Electro, and we already know it's powerful. We've seen ongoing Ramp. It's one of the more popular decks. I think it's the 6th most played deck this last season. Are we thinking Electro's going to work out?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, in those Ramp decks, though, like you see a couple different approaches to the game. Like a lot of the ones you're referring to are probably the one with Miss Marvel, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so like the stat lines aren't that high on those types of decks. So you have to have kind of re-envision what a Blob Ramp deck would have to be, because even like a Doctor Doom, that's 15 power across the board, but it ain't 15 power for Blob.
It would be like a new high power Ramp deck is the way that I think about it. But the tricky thing is you could only play probably Electro. I don't know if you want to go with Wave, because Wave is ultimately not even good with Blob. And that's another low power card. It's kind of the Mr. Negative effect. You know how it's like, yeah, you could have Zabu, Psylocke, and Ravonna, but then like you're not getting those negative cards. So you have to have that balance of having ways to activate it, but not. So I think Ramp could be a little clunky chunky. We're going to have to see if that's how it works ultimately. But in Negative's case, he's flipping the power, so he could have those Arnums, the Tasks, and the Iron Man way up.
Yeah, I mean, the way you could potentially see him being played in a Ramp style deck is play him on turn 5 and then Taskmaster's turn 6. That's like kind of the only way I see it being done. Because if you play, like, yeah, you said like Wave. You wave him out, you just mangle your whole deck. It's
Kill
like,
the whole thing.
now you're not drawing cards. You played him on 4. What are you going to do to 5 and 6 now?
Right. And so ultimately, Blob, we gave 3. I think he's one of those, period, though. You got to play with him. We're going to have to see how he works. The fact that Glenn said cards are coming to help him out makes me feel like 3-star is probably where he's going to end up. He could be higher. Last note on Blob, though, is going to be Thanos, which I think he's kind of an auto-include for. I do think that Thanos is going to be perfect for the Blob because you do have a bit more meaty. Now, you know, if we add the stones together, you're getting 1 from the soul, you got 4, you got 5, 6, 7. So you're adding, actually 8. You're having 8 extra power in the deck, but more importantly, it keeps your deck fat. You know what I mean? It keeps more cards in there, and then you also have the utility of the stones.
Yeah, and also like modern Thanos is running very greedy in the sense like basically Thanos is Thanos stones, Psylocke, and a whole bunch of 5 and 6 drops, right? So it's like it's so greedy that Blob could actually definitely take advantage of that.
But Thanos' biggest counter is Darkhawk. So I love the idea of being able to have Thanos with the Blob. There's cool things. I think Blob is a cool card ultimately. We're gonna have to see where he ends up after playing him overall.
Now, does Thanos become a 20 in the deck when you finish all 6? Because it pops up and says, boom, he goes all powerful. So that's huge for Blob. So if you finish Thanos and then you drop Blob, he's going to absorb that 20 power and clean the deck out, isn't he?
Dude, he does. Let me go to the Power Stone here. If you have played all 6 Thanos, wherever he is. That's huge. Actually, that's massive. A big, fat style. We saw this before of a big card kind of, oh my God. This is nutso, huh? Couldn't do Lockjaw.
Pretty cool.
Couldn't do Lockjaw, but that is cool. I'm excited. So there's more decks that meet the eye. I think people went hella, and my point is, I think that Blob is going to have a bit more potential than people might think. Now, speaking of potential, we had what was deemed the worst card in Marvel Snap by far to now a very, very interesting card. My buddy, we have Havok, who I think is going to be a split controversial card if people love him, if they think he's trash. Havok, guys, is a 2-cost now 0 power card. After each turn, you lose 1 max energy, and this card gains +4 power. Now, I know that seems crazy, a little confusing. Let me break it down. If you play Havok, it's very simple, guys. You get 2 energy per turn for the rest of the game. That's it. There's no other way. It's been confirmed. That's what happens. You can only play with 2. Now, there's some cards that can synergize with this. Havok, of course, you get the trade-off of having a giant card for you math wizards. He can get to like 20 power if played on curve. What are you thinking now with the new kit?
I think he's pretty interesting. And like at first I was like, man, this card sucks. But then they changed him a little bit. I was like, wait a minute. 2-0. Does he work with negative? Works with Ravonna. Okay, hold on. I've been playing a lot of Ravonna lately. It's actually been my go-to deck. And I'm like, hold on. Like, is Vipering this really that bad? Like, it's sticking them with 3 power for the rest. If they can't destroy this card, if they can't do anything about this card, it just eats their energy the whole time. And then, like, it just ticks up, ticks up, ticks up. And you're like, hey, guess what? I have Shadow King, but it's like, see ya. Like, I don't know. I think this could be one of the most toxic cards in Marvel Snap. I think there's potential to piss people off here.
I agree, and the way I look at it is I agree and disagree, right? So people were like, well, the Viper and Martyr didn't work. That was just a terrible play line. Like, that doesn't happen. This is my point with Havok. First of all, people have to understand, man, you need the nut, right? You have to have Havok and Viper. It needs to be on curve. So it's like awkward sometimes. But to your point, it's nice in junk decks because then you can have the Shadow King involved in there, give it away, and then go crazy at that point, right? And it is going to definitely, no question, encourage unique deck design. Havok is bringing extreme unique win conditions and crazy play lines, and I think there are more cards that are going to synergize with him. I was really down on Havok because he was not a great card, and they definitely did adjust a lot here. So I'm going to talk about the ones that I think he'll fit in the most, buddy. Star ratings before we get started. What do you think?
I ended up landing at a 3. Because in my head, I was like, this card might be 1 as completely unplayable or 5 as the most toxic card in Marvel Snap's history that completely ruins the game. From like hey, I don't get to play Marvel Snap anymore with like 3 energy because someone just Viper this over or whatever, right? I ended up landing on a 3 because I actually think, like, as you said, this is going to be one of those cards you have to get your hands on. You have to experiment with. It's going to take some really unique deck building. You can't just plug this into an existing like high Evo shell or dark. You can't just plug this into whatever you think is meta right now. It's going to take a whole new brew, and someone somewhere is going to figure out a brew that's going to ruin stuff. That's all I'm saying. So I see the potential of Havok, so I'm going with a 3.
I have now changed my opinion because of the update to exactly where I was with Nico. I think he's a boomer bust, right? And I think he's insane. Like 4-star plus, crazy new deck designs, whole new archetype. Or he's okay, and he just, like, it's not consistent enough. He's not worth both him and Viper in the deck. I think he's going to be great, potentially. And let me tell you why. So first of all, the one that kind of first hits my mind, at least, that I think naturally I already played a lot of, just had the deck guide out. Clearly, now that he's a 0 power card, Mr. Negative involved with Jane Foster is a silly great play. I think it's just awesome. You get to flat out have what you need, and it's great both ways. Because, oh no, you only have 2 energy, no big deal. You've got Iron Man costing 0, Arnim Zola, Noel costing 0. You can play your cards. Or you pull him with Jane, and now you can play him on turn 6. He does work on turn 6 to become, what, a 2-6? Right? Would he be? No, a 2-4 at that point. No, he's flipped, so it'd be a 2-6. Okay, so for me, Mr. Negative gets a huge bump up, and that's kind of where I immediately was like, yes, I love it. Love the Ravona synergy as well, so you have that mixed synergy. I think this is great for Negative.
Absolutely. And like, it is to be stated though, that this is an extremely restrictive effect, like a crazy restrictive effect. One of the most restrictive effects, like if you thought like Electro was bad, this is insane compared to Electro. Like you might not be able to play any cards. Like if you play Havok too early and you're top decking cards that like you just literally don't have the energy for, it's like, it's wild. It's wild. And so like, this card, I think you're right, has the potential to be like a 5-star absolute banger or a 1-star absolute trash heap. And I think Nico was the best comparison because like it's just, you just don't know until it's in the hands of the entire community. I can only imagine what their testing's been like. They've probably been testing it like crazy, but I don't think you can prepare like a card like this. Like you just, once you get it out there to the worldwide interwebs, people are going to find a way. I think this card has potential.
I mean, people are going to say, we talk crap on it, now we love it. Let me tell you, making it from a 1 to a 0 power is massive because of that Jane Foster synergy and the Ravona. You get the double hit now rather than you. I mean, that's massive. Getting it with Jane is going to be everything, and how Mr. Negative works all together. And I've gotten more comments than ever on a Mr. Negative video. This got me Infinite Conquest. This has got me to Infinite. If you know how to play him and you're conservative, I think he's a great deck still. Love to see it. Now, I want to hit you and the chat with a question I think is so interesting. Will there be a new style of, hey, you want the Havok, so you have armor in there too, and then you just have 2-cost cards. Maybe you have She-Hulk in there potentially as well, but then what you do at this point is you have just a Sarah Miracle deck with Havok. So you have Goose, you've got Angela and Kitty Pryde, and then you have Bounce, man. You have Bounce. This is what I was thinking. You bounce these cards back. They're free or they're cheaper. And now, before you play Havok, you can get the interactions going. You can get your cards for free. You have turn 4 and onward to play free cards. You don't need the energy. You have Sentinel in those decks. You have Elsa to boost up later. That's also a huge spot that Havok could work in.
The math has to be done on like, if you're going to do like some sort of like zoo inexpensive style deck, at which turn can you play Havok where like he's no longer detrimental? Like, can you play him on turn 4 so you can still get Kazar out on turn 5 plus the 1-drop or whatever? Like where, and then like what, he procs to a 2/8? Like that's pretty huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, so I think that like there's definitely potential. Wait, would he even work on turn 4? If you play him on turn 4, yeah. So if you play him on turn 4, you can still get Kazar out because when they gain energy, it gets reverted back. Basically, whatever turn you play him on, that's the maximum energy you'll ever have, correct?
Yeah. It's crazy to think that this card went from like trash in my eyes to potentially my favorite card of the season. I don't know. We'll have to see. Like we have to play test it. Who knows where he's going to end up? Let me know what you guys think of Havok. Last, I will say with the junk deck, as we were kind of spinning, I was like, hey, A-Bomb decks with Scorpion kind of curves out perfectly. Get the A-Bomb for cheap, and now you have a deck that can play big power with Havok. You need a deck. You need a deck like Cyclops. You need a deck that can work with the low energy, and that's where I could see him.
That's a really good idea. And even something like a Misty Knight will continuously add value. The only thing is though, is that I believe the energy that he occupies is not considered floated. So like, if, for instance, like if he kills an energy, it doesn't proc up the Hulk. Not that you would be able to play Hulk in a Havok deck anyway, but I'm just saying like it doesn't count as floated energy for like a Sunspot.
So A-Bomb is going to be the answer then, I think. A-Bomb could be really cool because again, Havok's going to win the lane he's probably in if you can protect him. And or if you have Cyclops down, you can also like spit out the negative power. So really cool win. Again, I'm going to say you went from like, I don't know, to probably one of my favorite cards. Love to see it on top of an interesting Spotlight week. Lastly, buddy, we have Selene. Now, Selene is one we looked at for a long time now. I'm scared of Selene and what it means if they don't address Werewolf by Night. I'm frightened, dude. Because that's already, the junk bounce deck is already so good with Annihilus. It's already the top tier, one of the best decks in the game. You add Selene, it makes that deck not only better, but significantly better, dude. What do you think of Selene?
I'm coming in with a 4-star rating on Selene. I think she's very strong. I think that as a 1-drop, like you can only have certain like effects on 1-drops. Like how powerful could they possibly be? I feel like this one's a lot. That's a big power swing, right? Like that's 4 potential -3 damage onto your opponent's side. The ability for it to kind of be immediately usable with a Nihilus, right? So you have a Nihilus and Hood as great, Hood and Selene as great 1-drops for a Nihilus. Not only that, but like it just seems like it's going to be detrimental to your opponent's hand. Like there's going to be cards that like have very powerful abilities like Iron Man that statted the way they are because of how powerful their text is. And you're holding on to this Iron Man and it's like, well, that sucks, right? Like I don't know. I think this card is going to be really good.
Dude, I love her. I think she's going to be fun. I mean, the way you look at Hood, look at Selene. If you think Hood is a 4-star card, then Selene's going to be that too. And the trade-off may even be better because of the affliction that it does. Also, Afflict also works with A-Bomb, which also makes it more, potential another. Getting anytime we get an Affliction deck is great. Luke Cage stocks way up. But the biggest thing is, when I say balance, the thing that people need to remember is Falcon can get the 1 cost back, which makes it a potential 3-played. That's great. That's crazy to me, man. She's going to be great, too. I think she's a 4-star as well, in my opinion. Because of that, if you like that style of play, again, we're gonna have to see what the OTA does. We're gonna have to see what the balance patch does. But as of today's meta, with the goblins, with a Nihilus, sign me up, man. I'm putting her way up there.
Yeah, she's great. The only thing about bouncing her back and forth is with that -3, she's likely to keep hitting the same card over and over again. So you're likely just to completely crater. Like their Iron Man will just be a -9. Be like, well, this is great, I guess, right? Like I'll play this -9 Iron Man. Like, no, it's not gonna happen, I guess. But like it's synergistic in a sense that like you're gonna be holding green goblins in your hand, hobgoblins, but it's also very draw dependent. I think this is what took a star off for me. Because if you have Selene in your hand and you don't have a goblin or a nice card to hit, you're like, I don't want to hit my 2-drop or like my whatever, right?
Yeah.
So you probably want to run Luke Cage yourself just because there's a chance you get some friendly fire on Selene. You're going to put Selene down and it hits your Scorpion. You're like, well, damn it, my Scorpion's garbage now, right?
That ultimately, you brought up a great point. The most important thing about 1-drops are if you pull it on the last turn of the game, is it going to be good? And she's a no. So she is a no. I guess you could play her than a Nihilus. That's like the biggest thing you could do. But you're not doing anything to the opponent at that point, right? So that is a way they kind of balance out the ebb and flows. Like Forge is always good, whereas other cards like Deadpool is a dead card at that point, right? For a 1-drop. All I know, man, is it's bound to be a really cool season. I think people are sleeping on just how unique and powerful every card is in this season, man. And Firestar would have been more bonk. I think it's good Firestar's gone because it's like she's the must buy and now complicates things a bit more overall. Let's end it with ranking them, buddy. Must buy. What do you think?
I think Selene's #1 for me. I think Selene definitely you got to get. From Sebastian Shaw, I think obviously is going to be fantastic. That's a season pass card, so that's like a money thing or whatever. So that's a whole different conversation. But I mean, statistically, we've always said that the season pass, if you're going to spend money in Marvel Snap, season pass does give you the best return for your dollar, and you're going to be getting Sebastian Shaw. Blob, I think, is probably the lowest ranked for me, with Havok being somewhere in the, like, I need to play Havok, right?
Yeah.
I don't care if he's good or bad. I need to have that card in my collection because I want to experiment with it. If I had to skip one, I'd skip Blob. If I had to only pick one, I'd pick Havok because I like the anarchy. But I think that Selene will probably be amongst the best.
We'll be breaking down all the new stuff coming as well as the card balance. Over on Alex's side, we're going to be talking about smart decks and how huge they are. The albums, which are crazy. I'm excited to break those down. OTA and more. And then, of course, the Snapchat mailbag and Snap's newest villains. I always love talking about the cards that people hate the most, and we might even see them adjusted the day after. Guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the Snapchat. Have fun in the December season. Remember, Alex hates Christmas. And as always, until the next one, happy snapping.